April 14th, 2026. This is our way of handling the day's Democracy Now! Stories. We do not just repeat headlines. We take the event, check what is solid, and pull out the one takeaway that exposes a deeper layer of power, institutions, and daily life. Story 1. China's response to the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports is the clearest signal in the file. Beijing condemned the blockade, Iran-linked ships still crossed Hormuz, and Washington and Tehran may already be heading back toward talks. The deeper truth is that choke points only work as instruments of power when the rest of the system agrees to obey them. When major trading powers test the line instead of accepting it, coercion starts turning back into negotiation. Story 2. The Washington talks between Lebanon and Israel matter less for what they promise than for what they exclude. Hezbollah rejected them, Lebanon wants a ceasefire, Israel wants disarmament first, and medics are still being killed, while Red Cross vehicles are being hid. The deeper lesson is that diplomacy becomes theater when the actor with the gun and the veto is outside the room. A society can hold talks and still remain trapped inside war. Story 3. The New York protest outside Schumer and Gillibrand's offices matters because it points at the real supply chain of war. Nearly 100 people were arrested demanding that senators block another bomb sale to Israel, while Bernie Sanders says he will force a vote. The deeper takeaway is that dissent becomes more serious when it stops asking only for moral recognition and starts trying to interrupt the material flow of bombs, bulldozers, and state permission. Story 4. The wage unrest in Noida may look local, but it is one of the most revealing stories in the transcript. Tens of thousands of workers protested, the state raised minimum wages, and the trigger was rising pressure on fuel, fertilizer, and basic costs as the Iran war ripples outward. The deeper truth is that a war at an oil choke point does not stay in the Gulf. It reappears as a wage fight in a factory belt thousands of miles away. Story 5. Another man has died in ICE custody, and at the same time, contractors were cited after a worker was crushed to death while building a giant ice camp in Texas. The deeper lesson is brutal and simple. Enforcement systems do not only consume the detained, they also consume the workers who build and service the machinery. When a system is rushed, secretive, and politically rewarded for throughput, human life gets treated as a replaceable input on both sides of the fence. Story 6. The U.S. military's latest strike on an alleged drug vessel in the Pacific matters because the Pentagon offered no evidence that the boat was carrying drugs, and rights groups say these killings are likely extrajudicial. The deeper truth is that once the state invents a broad enough category like narco-terrorist, evidence thresholds start collapsing. Distance then does the rest. Offshore violence becomes easier to hide, easier to justify, and easier to normalize. Story 7. Chevron's expansion in Venezuela and the pressure against the Paramount-Warner deal are two versions of the same story. In Venezuela, regime change and outside leverage quickly opened the door to resource access. In media, major figures in the industry are warning that one giant merger would further concentrate cultural power. The deeper lesson is that capital always moves toward chokehold positions. Oil fields, studios, newsrooms, streaming libraries, pipelines, and distribution channels all become more valuable when fewer hands control them. Story 8. Trump's lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal was dismissed, at least for now. On the surface, that is just another legal defeat. The deeper point is larger. Powerful people now use lawsuits the way states use sanctions, not only to win, but to exhaust, intimidate, and raise the cost of scrutiny. Even when they lose, the process itself can become part of the punishment. The through line today is simple. Systems under stress do not just become harsher, they become more concentrated. More concentrated in who controls trade, who controls weapons, who controls courts, who controls labor terms, who controls detention, and who controls narrative infrastructure.